Language is one of the most powerful emblems of social behavior. In the normal transfer of information, we use language to send vital social messages about who we are, where we come from, and who we associate with. It is often shocking to realize how extensively we may judge a person's background, character, and intentions based simply upon the person's language, dialect, or even the choice of a single word. Language is one of the main connecting factors to self-identity and to one's culture. It is said that language is intrinsic to the expression of culture. As a means of communicating values, beliefs, and customs, it has an important social function and fosters feelings of group identity and solidarity. It is the means by which culture and its traditions and shared values may be conveyed and preserved. We can then use communication theories to understand what role language plays in our lives. For instance, social identity theory and language. The core idea of social identity theory is that group membership constitutes a fundamental part of an individual's feeling of belonging. It is argued that individuals categorize themselves and others into groups to establish and maintain their self-esteem and reduce uncertainty. Henry Tajvel proposed that stereotyping is based on a normal cognitive process, the tendency to group things together. In doing so, we tend to exaggerate the differences between groups and the similarities of things in the same group. According to Giles, individuals' language is used in positive or negative differentiations, thereby expressing ethnic identity. Furthermore, Giles and Burns assert that a language group is also an ethnic group, since language is one of the most characteristic markers of identity. Language, in other words, becomes the embodiment of ethnicity. When one's language is controlled or inhibited, one can feel that a part of their identity or culture has been taken away. One demographic that may see language differently are college-age students who are in new environments. They are in times of transitions and assimilation, and they may rely on their own culture in times of uncertainty, or they may embrace new cultures. This study will examine individuals' reactions to the following case and how they would react if they were in the situations themselves. In a recent case, a Maui professor by the name of Samuel Kalikoa Ka'eo of Hawaiian Studies at Maui refused to speak English in the courtroom. Ka'eo was arrested and in court for protesting TNT's telescope atop Haleakala. Judge Blaine Kobayashi dismisses Oleo Hawaii in court, claiming that he could not officially verify Ka'eo's presence in the courtroom, and therefore he issued a warrant for his arrest. This then sparked protests and controversies across the state, especially amongst Hawaiian sovereign people.
Language means the way you communicate on your native environment.
Language is the word that you communicate with people.
I guess it's cool that people are able to speak in a way that that is unique to them, I guess.
It's a tool to communicate with people in a specific region, so it's important to learn languages to be able to communicate with more people.
I think it's one of the great ways that we're able to communicate with one another. I think it's also really interesting if you look at how different languages have evolved. I think it really reflects your culture and just where you came from.
Do you prefer speaking in your native tongue?
Yes, I do, obviously.
Why?
Because you can express myself better.
Yeah, I would if they understand me because that's my mother tongue, so I can provide like what I really mean.
I don't speak my native tongue perfectly, so I guess I wouldn't prefer to speak in it. However, I like the language, and basically language which I was raised with, I prefer to speak it because it's easier for me.
I would prefer the freedom to do whatever I want, I guess. Whether to speak English or another language, I believe that everyone should have a choice, whether it be English or anything else, yeah.
Normally, if I'm just here in the state of Hawaii, I'll just use English. But when I go to San Francisco and I've actually visited some of my relatives on my Chinese side of the family, it's really important for me to be able to introduce myself in Cantonese and also just to know a little bit of Mandarin, just because a lot of, I would say, the older generation, mainly like my great grandparents' age and my grandparents, most of them aren't really great at English. So it's good to know Cantonese just because you have that connection and that kind of bonds you together.
I think it's important for me because that can show people like where I'm from.
I have specific terms I can express specific things which I don't have in other languages. So, for example, if I speak English, it's really hard for me sometimes to express what I really want to say, while in German or Thai, it's really easy for me. I mean, I feel different because people look at me weird and be like, why do you speak a Western language besides English? Obviously, I don't look right. So they associate German with white people, basically. But when I speak Thai, it's actually pretty cool because I don't get to speak Thai so much.
Sometimes when I really, example like when here, if I'm mad with Lucas, I speak Thai, so I don't feel really bad when I talk bad in front of him.
I can express myself a lot better than I would if I, like if I speak English. But at the same way, if I mess up on something, there's no way around it. Whereas in English, you always have a way around it because you're like, oh, I didn't understand or whatever.
Participants were shown a short video of the incident between Kaeo and Kobayashi in the Maui courtroom and asked a series of questions following the clip.
But it's a really difficult and complicated situation.
That guy was being very difficult to work with and very inconsiderate.
I think it's definitely an interesting situation, just because I can see where both parties are coming from. I know the judge, he has to follow the law, and so if there was no legal way to determine if Kaeo said, yes, no, if he was actually present and understood, I can see why he issued the warrant. At the same time, though, I would say Kaeo was on trial in relation to a protest. I can see why he felt it was important to speak Native Hawaiian. And also the fact that he's a professor of Native Hawaiian language for university on Maui. I can definitely see where both parties are coming from.
No, it's hard to say really because it's when I watch that, I try to put myself on, for example, if we're back home in Brazil, So if one of the Indian, like native before like Portuguese, Spanish people came there, like the native is called Tupi, the language. If the Tupi Guarani guy will go to court and he only speak Tupi to the judge instead of Portuguese, I'll be like, what the hell is this guy doing? What is he trying to prove? Because it's not like I understand that it was a violent conquering of the state, and against a bunch of like people. People have different opinions, but whatever the law is, you have to, unfortunately, you have to comply with it. It's like if you didn't do anything wrong, you just prove like in a proper way. I'm not exactly sure what is going on in there, but it was the monarchia thing, right? Monarchia. Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a smart way to protest it.
I think it's depending. I think it's important here in Hawaii since Hawaiian was the first language basically here, and even though it's now the United States, it's historically they didn't really agree to be part of the United States in the first place. They were more likely taken over. So for them it's really important to keep the culture and therefore the language. So I believe to go a step towards them, we should make sure that they can speak Hawaiian if they prefer to speak Hawaiian.
It's not really practical to have all. I mean, like an interpreter to be over there to be able to decode all of these languages. I guess the person that is being, I guess the guy should have been more considerate towards the judge and speak in a language that is convenient for him. That's what I think.
Definitely Native Hawaiian, it should be recognized in the court system, at least here within the state of Hawaii. I would say, though, that I think there should have been better communication prior to the trial, simply because it was announced, I think, at least twice prior to the trial that it would be conducted in English. So at the same time, Mr. Ka'eo did make the choice to use Native Hawaiian, even though he had been told the trial would be conducted in English. And so if there's no Native Hawaiian language interpreter in the courtroom, then the judge is unable to verify his statements. So it's definitely a sticky situation. I think better communication could have avoided the situation. There's definitely a time and a place to address these matters, and I would say it's better to be proactive rather than reactive.
I mean, you should recognize, but did the guy ask for a translator? Did the judge offer a translator? Yeah, so I guess, But the guy could speak English, right? He was a professor at the university. So it's like, man, if he didn't at all, which is really hard,
I believe he should have get a translator if he doesn't understand Hawaiian. Since his name wasn't really Hawaiian or, let's say, white either, so it might have given a feeling that they don't have a right to express their own culture and language, therefore, which they should be possible to, especially America says every individual has the right to express their own culture and feeling without any limitations if it doesn't break the law.
Again, that's a tough one because in the video, they did give a reason for why the judge issued the warrant, and he's required by law to do that if he can't verify what Mr. Ka'eo is saying. At the same time, though, I do think it's a bit harsh. I honestly think that they should have had a conversation, prior. If Mr. Ka'eo wanted to use Native Hawaiian and felt strongly about using it within the court system, that they should have discussed this prior. With that being said, Mr. Ka'eo, he did make the conscious choice to speak Native Hawaiian within the court.
I mean, we know that they know each other, right? And the guy, he can speak English. He can speak English, but he just tried to make an issue for me. That's what I thought. But if in different culture, have one guy who cannot speak English at all, the judge might provide people to translate. So,
I think he was right in parts. Because, as I said, the guy could speak English, so he understood the judge. The judge didn't understand him. So in order for you to, comply with the law, you should have at least make that conversation doable, happen. What the judge could have done instead is just get a translator and make the conversation happen instead of, because he arrested him, right? Yeah, instead of just putting a arrest order, you could just go, okay, let's bring a translator and solve this in a different way then, But, I'm not a judge, maybe the guy is, I can imagine if you're doing your job every day and then you get a guy that's just giving you a hard time because of that, you just go for it.
So, what did we find? In today's study, we interviewed college-age students to see what role language played in their own lives and their perception on language and its connection to culture. What we found is that college students value and recognize the importance that language plays in their everyday lives. Language provides them with a means to connect to those around them and is a way to self-identify in order to better express themselves. It was found with many of the individuals that language in their native tongue was much easier than in second languages, and that they were able to better express themselves than they would in a second language. When reacting to the clip about Kaeo and Kobayashi in the Maui case, it was found that students were split almost evenly on whether or not they agreed with Kaeo or Kobayashi. In addition, students felt that language should be valued in the court system. However, it is impractical to have translators for every language. When it comes to social identity theory, it was interesting to see the comparison between students' responses on language in their lives compared to the Maui courtroom. Students value their language as an important part of their culture and self-identity. However, they were more critical as an outside view on the case, which supports Tashfel's idea of stereotyping an individual's tendency to exaggerate, and also leads to his ideas of the in-group and out-group.